Welcome to the Where Do Gays Retire podcast, where we help you in the LGBTQ plus community find a safe and affordable retirement place. Join Mark Goldstein as he interviews others who live in gay-friendly places around the globe. Learn about the climate, cost of living, healthcare, crime and safety, and more. Now, here's your host, Mark Goldstein.
Today, we're going to take a little trip to Sacramento, California with our guest, Greg Wine. We'll tell you a little bit about Greg. So Greg lives with his husband, Robert Zargaryan, in Sacramento, California. They've been together for 26 years after meeting at the Los Angeles Gay Rodeo. They moved to Sacramento 16 years ago from Los Angeles, where Greg was a restaurant manager and a dietitian. Well, those kind of go together. I can see that. Greg is now a retired clinical dietitian from UC Davis Medical Center, where he was promoting healthy nutrition and preventing malnutrition in patients with head and neck cancer. In retirement, Greg assists his husband, Robert, a realtor, and his clients with design ideas to maximize potential in buying and selling real estate. Together, they live in an active 55-plus resort community of 960 homes called Heritage Park in Sacramento, where they enjoy many amenities, including a 100-plus member Rainbow Club. And I'm curious to know about your 55-plus resort community. So welcome, Greg. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here.
So, Greg, tell our audience where you moved from originally and why you decided to live in Sacramento. When I introduced you, you said you moved directly from LA to Sacramento. That's not too far. What made you also move from LA to Sacramento?
Well, starting at the beginning, I was born and raised in New England, in Massachusetts, and the weather there, the humidity, and so on and so forth, I knew that was not for me as the winter and so on. And so I moved to Southern California when I was in my early 20s to seek fame and fortune, ran away from home as far as I could until I hit water. And so I stayed in LA for a while, but as LA grew, it got much more congested. And I didn't even enjoy the amenities in LA as much as I did when I was younger. And so Robert and I threw our resumes up to Northern California, and Sacramento caught them. And basically, we moved to Sacramento because of where Sacramento was. It was halfway between San Francisco and Lake Tahoe and Mendocino. And those are the places that we really enjoy sort of taking weekend trips. And so we didn't choose Sacramento. We chose Northern California for the climate, for what it offered, for the getaways that were nearby. And so Sacramento at that time, 16 years ago, was I want to say even in its infancy. It's been the capital of California since its inception. It's been the gold rush sort of area, so it's famous for that, but it's very much still an agricultural community. But because of property values in California, now Sacramento has absolutely boomed, and a lot of, hip eateries are here, and cultural museums and theaters and different places like that are here. And so now I would even hesitate to say it's somewhat trendy. The downtown, midtown area in Sacramento is very hip, and so has breweries and beer gardens and coffee houses and coffee roasters, as well as very walkable areas with art galleries. And one special thing we have here is Second Saturday, which is a big open gallery event. And there are bands in different neighborhoods that come out and play. Restaurants open up their doors and have different nibbles on the sidewalk and so on and so forth. So it's a real cultural community where people have moved not only from the rural areas, but also from San Francisco. And now we're seeing other people coming from other states and relocating here.
Sounds like my kind of place. All of those amenities, those city-like amenities, really, that's something that I really enjoy. So tell us geographically, where is Sacramento in the state of California? I know it's north.
Yeah, it's 2/3 north in California, but it's literally halfway between the coast where San Francisco is and the border of Nevada or Reno, Nevada. That would be the closest airport to Lake Tahoe. And so it's right in between the two. It's just south of an agricultural area in the middle of the Sacramento Valley, but just south of a agricultural area that's the wine region known as Napa and Sonoma and Mendocino and even Lake County. These four counties have quite an established wine region. But now Sacramento has its own established wine region in Placer County and Amador County. So there are wine regions surrounding Sacramento. So it's in every direction. Even south is Lodi with award-winning Zinfandel. So,
Do you drink wine?
actually, I'm now 32 years sober, but I used to be a wine.
There you go.
But I used to be a wine buyer for a restaurant in Southern California. And when we moved up here, the first property that we bought was a 2-acre property, and we put in a vineyard and we made our own wine. It was the Z Wine Homestead varietals. And so we did blends and we made our own wine. And I designed the label for the bottle. And it's just been a really great adventure living here.
Wow, that sounds great. So, okay. Now you mentioned Reno. You're in between, you're halfway to Reno. How far, like driving, how many miles?
In California, we don't do distance in miles. We do distance in how long, because you could be 10 miles in LA and it takes 45 minutes. So we're about an hour and 45 minutes from San Francisco. We're about 3 hours from Sonoma and Napa. And we're 2 hours from Sonoma and Napa, and we're about an hour and a half from Lake Tahoe. And Reno is just on the other side of the mountain, so that's probably going to be about the 2-hour mark.
Okay, so 2 hours. Reno has snow and is kind of cold in the winter.
Yes.
Does Sacramento get snow?
No, it doesn't. There have been dustings in what we call the Sierra foothills or whatever, but when we are coldest, it's clear out. And when we're cloudy, it holds the heat in. So any storm that comes through, it never comes through as snow because we've held the heat in. I know it's very different.
I could deal with it. I could deal with it. No snow. That's what I promised myself. When I left New York City, I said, the only time I want to see snow is in a picture on Facebook or on vacation. But I wouldn't even go.
We go to the snow at least once a year. We drive to Lake Tahoe and we get a cabin or a condo or something, and we stay for 3-4 days in Lake Tahoe, and we enjoy the cold weather beautiful. And the snow as we choose to enjoy it rather than living in it.
Do you go skiing?
I have gone skiing, but not in the last couple of years. But I do enjoy skiing.
Okay. Well, it sounds very intriguing. So tell us a little bit about the climate. I mean, you told us that it doesn't snow in the winter. So how hot does it get in the summer? Like right now, let's see, Phoenix, I'm thinking we probably are around 110 right now. What do you know what the temperature would be?
Yeah, just before I got on, I wanted to check that. And currently we're at about 96. Our high today is likely going to be 99. And again, that's because it's a little cloudy. And so it's blocking the sun's rays. More recently, we did get up to 108 the other day. And that's usually the highest in the summer. It has gone higher, but that's the highest.
I'm surprised it goes that high.
It's sort of, that's when a heat wave comes through. That's when, and it happens at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. That's the highest of the day. So it's bearable in the morning and to do all your chores or whatever. And so then it gets up to that 108. Many of the homes here, the newer built ones, they're on a concrete slab foundation. So that holds the coolness in. Many of the homes have very high ceilings. So that's also really good for energy efficiency. So our air conditioner is really only running maybe 4 or 5 hours during the day, because we're able to open our windows at night. We have something called the Delta Breeze. Sacramento, we have 2 rivers that then empty into this delta going out towards San Francisco Bay. And as you or some of our listeners may know, that San Francisco gets foggy, and that breeze, that wind comes in through the bay and up the delta, and it's called the Delta Breeze. And all summer long, we cool off around 7 o'clock at night, and around 8 or 9 o'clock, we open all the windows because it's already 65 degrees, and it gets down into the 50s at night. So we're cooled off. And then the next day, we start all over again.
So it could go from 108 to 65?
It can. And it just did that last night. It was 108 yesterday, and last night the lowest was 65, and I had the windows open.
Wow. So here in Phoenix, it is 110. I called it. Right now, I think we're going up to 112, which is pretty chilly for us since we've been 119 quite a bit. But yeah, that sounds great. Cooling off at night and not putting air conditioner on. See, that only happens in the winter here, or in the spring or fall. And
for some folks that also don't realize that this heat I'm talking about, it truly is a dry heat. We don't get humidity. That's why we have a drought problem, right? Because we don't get humidity. And so this is a very dry heat, which is good for people that just can't handle that humid weather. And so I kind of like it. I don't really like it over 105, but anything under 102, it's for me anyway, it's really doable. And
it's not bad.
Yeah, and it's only during those like late June through early August time periods, which that's again when we can take a day trip to Lake Tahoe, or we're going to have a week coming up soon where we're going to the Mendocino coast. And so it doesn't get over like 70 degrees on Mendocino coast, and that's only a few hours away.
See, that's beautiful. You can get away really quickly to a place that's 20 degrees cooler or 30 degrees cooler than you are. That's wonderful.
It's the blessing of retirement, right? A heat wave is coming, and so you just leave.
Get out of town. Get out of town. So is it a desert climate, since you said it's so dry?
You know what? I wish I had more of an American description of it, but it's a Mediterranean climate. If you think about Provence in France, we have lavender fields, we have sunflower fields, we have olive groves, we have the wineries. And so it's really that Mediterranean climate. And that's the best way I can describe it, because it's not a desert climate. It really does have more moisture than that. And it's not as hot as the desert. So it is a really interesting, and within our area, we have microclimates, which is just fascinating. Some people may know that San Francisco has microclimates even within its own boundaries, but all of Northern California has a huge variety of microclimates.
Isn't that Mediterranean climate is like my favorite climate. I mean, what's better than that? So you have the Mediterranean climate where I was thinking of, Spain. I was looking forward to that. But if you have a Mediterranean climate, hey, I'm all for checking that out too. So how about, okay, so in the summer you can get away to Lake Tahoe and Mendocino. Is it Mendocino that you said?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Do you get any, like in the summer, do you get monsoon weather at all?
No. Again, that's
No?
going to be more of your tropical and humid, and we don't get any of that.
It's like it never rains in California.
That's where the song comes from.
Yeah.
But when it does, as the song says, it pours. And this year,
And it pours.
we did have a lot of flooding.
You did.
In Northern California and around the coast. Sacramento has a history of flooding, and because of that history, they have built levees all around the entire Sacramento County area. The southern part is still much more of an agricultural area, so that's where a lot of the Sacramento flooding still occurs because it's more agricultural land. But all of these areas that are now built out with homes and like suburbs, they're all protected by these really high levees. And people hear about levee failure. We have sort of a fail-safe system. On the other side of the levee is what's called a weir. And they let the weirs open and they flood these rice fields, and it goes directly out to the delta. And so we've had to do that almost every year, not quite every year, but at least 3 times I'm aware of in the 16 years that I've been here, and to flood the delta, the rice fields, so that we don't flood the places where people live. And so the flood control here is really quite sophisticated.
Wow. So in your time there, do you have sewer systems also?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Because here in Phoenix, that's what I'm missing is sewer. Even though it doesn't rain often, I guess they don't need it. But when we do have monsoons, there's nowhere for the water to go. So at least you have sewers and get rid of the water. And I'll be a smart ass and jerk and say, do you take your Chevy to the levee?
The levee is a beautiful road that goes along the river. And so it's just a great place to sort of take a Sunday drive and visit some of the towns along the Delta. And so again, it's just another little tourist attraction to do on a Sunday afternoon.
Oh my God. Every time we talk about something, I think of another song. I don't know why. Delta Dawn. And take my Chevy, buy American Pie, and take my Chevy to the levee. I don't know.
Every time I talk about Delta Breeze, I keep picturing a drag queen. So
Delta, what's her name?
Yes.
Okay. Back on track. So, okay. Is living in an LGBTQ community important to you? And does Sacramento actually have one? I thought it was a little conservative years back, but tell us a little bit about the LGBTQ community in Sacramento.
You're right that Sacramento is, because it's a huge agricultural center, it has leaned a lot more red in the past. But again, because of government and healthcare being the 2 largest employers, they pay more like the larger San Francisco salaries. So Sacramento has actually encouraged people moving from LA and San Francisco to come here. And they have, let's say, gentrified some of these areas and brought in the culture and supported the cultural events so that these more urban areas are absolutely blue now. And so within Sacramento, we have a Democratic congressman, Ami Bera, and we have a very strong union supporting community here, again, because of government and healthcare. And along with that, you asked me, is LGBT community important to me? I want to feel comfortable where I live. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that Sacramento offers is a very active LGBT center, and they have a senior program there. And I'm sober, and they also have 12-step meetings there. And there's a very strong sober community within the LGBT community here. And so all of those things just made me feel very comfortable moving here 16 years ago. But as I got older and as I decided to retire, I didn't want to sort of be in a suburban neighborhood and bored. I knew my immediate neighbors, but we didn't socialize together. And a couple of them were Trump supporting. I'm sorry that I'm going to call it out like it is, but
You go, boy.
They said to me once, it's too bad you don't have a better candidate than Biden. And I wanted to say, it's shameful that your candidate is Trump. But at any rate, I digress.
Thank you.
I just really wanted a community. I didn't mind the diversity, whatever that means, whether it's political or racial or age or whatever. I think that's fantastic. But I just wanted to be able to walk to enjoy people and amenities and friends. And so we were shopping around for different planned urban developments and that had some amenities. I wanted a pool, but I didn't want to take care of it, basically. And so we found this community. Yeah, we found this community called Heritage Park in northern Sacramento. It happens to be maybe 5 minutes from the airport, so it's very easy to like hop on a plane and get out of town. But it is a gated community of 960 homes, so it's quite large. Because of that, the HOA is relatively low. We pay $300 a month, and that supports the 24/7 security, the gates, the landscaping, the mow and blow in the front. We have 2 pools. We have a sort of lagoon pool that's outdoors and heated, sort of 3/4 of the year it's heated. And then indoors, we have pretty much an Olympic-sized pool that's heated year-round. We also have a jacuzzi, 2 jacuzzis outside, one of which is heated year-round. And then we have over 100 clubs. So, of course, you have the Mahjong and Quilters and Arts and Crafts Club and whatever. But we have a Fiesta Club that this week I'm going to be taking salsa dance lessons. And then, of course, we have our Rainbow Club. Out of those 960 homes, we have probably 50 or 60 of those that are LGBT owned. We have over 100 members in our Rainbow Club. And interestingly, and I didn't know that before visiting here, but when we were going to an open house, I saw this male couple coming towards us, and he had on a UC Davis jacket, and that's where I worked at the time. And so I said, oh, I work there too. And we introduced each other and started chatting. And it was just like we were old friends that had been separated years ago. And we were just chatting away. And he said, you have to move here. The Rainbow Club is fantastic. We have over 100 members, and we do dinner parties, and we have potlucks, and we do this, that, and the other thing. And so I was like, this is incredible. And I found out later, during the pandemic, it was the Rainbow Club that started, or one of the members of the Rainbow Club that started this idea of bringing food or having food available for some of the shut-ins that were living in our community, the people who were homebound in our community. And we have a private restaurant, a private pub that's in our clubhouse that has a ballroom and a movie theater and a pool table in a sort of a library of sorts. And so even though the restaurant was closed, they had the restaurant open for to-go orders. And so we could start providing food to those people who really relied on the restaurant for meals. And so anyway, it's just been, I told you in an earlier conversation, I feel like I won the lottery by moving here.
Let me ask you a question. So
Sure.
You're in California. So we're talking California. It's not the cheapest place in the world. You mentioned that your HOA is just over $300
Yes.
a month. Month? What's the catch?
That's very fun. Someone asked me what is the lot rent, because people have mobile homes and modular homes in California that maybe they pay less for, 200, 300,000, whatever, but their lot rent is 700 or 900 a month. And some of these condos, their condo fees are 600 a month. I think it's based on a good HOA by containing costs. And it's also based on numbers. We have 960 homes. And so because of that, we get a good deal on security and land care and all of these other things. One of our big expenditures is heating the pool with a gas furnace. And so this year, we're looking at replacing the gas furnace with solar electric and solar water heat for the gym and the locker room and all the amenities that have to do with hot water at the clubhouse. So we're going to eliminate our gas bill at the clubhouse.
Maybe I'm in the wrong place. So my HOA, and I'm in a condo, I'm paying, well, again, I'm in a city, in the central part of the city. So I'm paying close to $700 a month for HOA. And what do we have? A pool, a gym, nothing special. No like diving pool, nothing fancy. And it sounds like your place is just this huge place with a bunch of amenities.
I will say, because my husband's in real estate, I sometimes know these things and I kind of forget to mention it. If your HOA is taking care of your roof and the exterior of your building and fire insurance and those sort of costs that are associated with insuring a building, those HOAs are going to be higher.
More.
But because we own our home and we own the land that the home is on, we're not leasing the land does not belong to the park. We own the square and everything in it, and we're responsible.
You're responsible for the roof,
for the roof and the walls and whatever.
Right.
But I will tell you. So this community was built in 2004, so it's 20 years old. People might say, "Ooh, that's a 20-year roof." Actually, our roofs are made with concrete tiles, and these are called lifetime roofs. So these concrete tiles, one may kind of go askew and slip, and then you just replace it. I mean, literally shove it over and place it where it's supposed to be. Or it could crack, maybe someone walked on it, and then that single tile is replaced. But this roof never needs to be replaced. It's for it's for the lifetime of the house.
Wow.
So.
Interesting.
And the siding, mostly we have stucco siding. And for the slats, they're not a wood, but they're a wood cement composite. And so again, the outdoor costs are not, the upkeep for the outdoor costs are not outrageous at all.
Do they have any homes that the HOA takes care of the land or the gardening, or is that all on your own?
So all of the homes, the HOA takes care of the front yard so that when you drive through, there's sort of a uniform look to the community, but you're in charge of your backyard. And then I'm letting my grass die and I want to put in more of a patio and whatever, but we have a pretty large backyard as far as these sort of homes go. The community does offer half plexes. And so these are, let's say they're duplexes, 2 units together sharing a living room wall. And so these, because you have a shared wall, the HOA does cover the exterior and the roof, and they pay $307 per month instead
That's
of
less than,
Instead of 300, they pay 307.
oh, so you're only paying 300. I forgot. So
Right.
a big $7 for.
Ooh. Yes.
Yeah.
So anyway, so yeah, we have and those half plexes are anywhere from 1,100 square feet to 1,500 square feet, and mostly they're 2-bedroom, 2-bath, and they start around 400,000.
Do you have any that are 1 story? No steps?
All the buildings here, except only one model, all the buildings here are 1 story.
Oh, that's my type of place. That's my type of place. Wow, that's incredible.
Even the model that is 2-story, the master bedroom and ensuite bath is on the lower level. So the upper floor is really for extended family, grandchildren, maybe a home office, but you can still have single-story living even in the 2-story homes that are here. But those are very few of those models. And those are the larger. Those are 3,300 square feet. And there's one on the market down the street here. It's a little overpriced. It's around $850,000, but I think it's probably going to sell eventually for in the high 7s.
And people might not think that us gays age, but we do. And to me, it's very important that as we age, I don't want to be climbing steps.
I used to work in a hospital. My entire career has mostly been working in a hospital. And I had patients that could not go home because they could not go up steps.
Right.
And so they had to actually move out while living in the hospital and move to another facility because they could not live in their home. So I've only owned 1 house. We've moved 7 times, but I've only owned I've only owned 1 house that had 2 stories because I just only want a 1 story.
Wow. Yeah, that's us too. I mean, we live in a condo. It's a 1-story condo. And it's a nice size condo for a big city. But yeah, I could, and this is a home. Okay. And I know that your home is like huge, right? You mentioned.
We have a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath that is 2,750 square feet.
I hope you have somebody clean it because the bigger it is.
We have our community has a.
Don't tell me they clean it.
No, they don't. But our community has a monthly magazine, and there was an ad in the magazine for a cleaning service. And they said, we specialize in cleaning for your community. And they really do. It's like half the price of what we were being charged for where we used to live. And so, yeah, we have a wonderful cleaner. She comes once a month, and she's lovely.
So just out of curiosity, give me a price. How much do you pay?
The service charges
per cleaning?
$150 for the 3.5 hours.
Okay.
I don't know how that compares to other areas, but for here, that's pretty good.
Okay. Yeah. California's
in some instances, California is very, very expensive. Absolutely.
Yeah. But I'm not seeing that too much right now as far as you describe Sacramento. Like I can see San Francisco, LA, San Diego. Palm Springs is pretty reasonable. But then again, you're also in really hot desert in the summer. So I kind of think of it that way. But your Sacramento seems pretty reasonable considering it's California.
It still has a real sort of rural feeling to it. So I think that in order to support the locals who live here, everything seems to, whether it's groceries or whether it's gas, or just seems to be more affordable. Even we have our own electric company in Sacramento, so even the electricity is more affordable than the sort of statewide offered electricity. So
can you provide examples? So you provided examples of how much housing costs, right? Did you say?
In our community, yeah, it's
Yeah.
anywhere from about 400,000 for a smaller 2-bed, 2-bath, upwards to 700 and something for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, or 3-bedroom, 3-bath.
Okay. All right. And how about utility bills, gas bills, electric bills? What are your taxes like?
Yeah, and I was looking up some of those things, and it really depends on if there's going to be Sacramento City tax or Sacramento County or unincorporated areas, and so it can vary. And so I read on this one website to figure, like, for property taxes, like 1.2%. And I think that sort of covers. For electricity, I was looking at some information, and during the summer where we're doing a lot of air conditioning, and well, not a lot, as I said, a few hours anyway, but more than usual, then we're looking at like $75 to $100 a month. And then there was gas bill that we had for heating in February that was more in tune to 460 in January and February. But like just recently, our gas bill is $8. So that's the heating difference in the winter.
That's a big difference.
Yes, versus just sort of hot water and cooking on the stove in the summer. It's only $8.
So you said $80 to $100 air conditioning bills in the summer?
Yeah, and I was sort of questioning that as well. So I actually asked, I hope I'm not going to disconnect you. I actually asked my husband he's not home, but he takes care of a lot of those bills through his mileage credit card. And so I wanted to get a handle on what that was and if I was misspeaking or something like that. But I think it averages out to about $100 a month.
That's pretty good. Considering, our summer. So do you turn on, in the summer, do you have to turn on the air conditioning and keep it on all day? Or is it like you turn it off at night when it gets a little cooler?
We have it set maybe higher than other people would like. We have it set at 78 degrees, and it usually turns on about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and it usually turns off at, I want to say, about 7 o'clock at night, 6 or 7 o'clock at night. And so then we open the windows, and we have the windows open all night long, all morning long. And then we close them up around 11 or 12. And then the AC turns on in the early afternoon.
So let's say it's a 100 degree day. You have your air conditioner on. At night, it goes down to something livable?
60. I know that it's hard to believe. I understand those 40 degree swings.
Yeah.
It's like, but if I know we're Facebook friends now, right? And I recently posted the 10-day forecast so I could show people the Delta breeze, because people just don't get it. They're like, what do you mean? It goes from 59 to 99? You know, that's unheard of, but it does it almost every day. So
I'm going to be thinking of you when it's 1:09 at 8:45 at night, and it's probably 70 or 60 by you.
Yeah. I mean, I've been to Palm Springs in the summer, and I have friends that live in Palm Springs, and they tell me these stories, and it's just not me. I'm spoiled. Let's put it that way.
No, you're not. No, you're not. But yeah, and Palm Springs, it's a nice place. I like it visiting. I don't know if I could actually live there because if I wanted to get away from the heat here, I'm not going to go to a place that's identical. I'm going to go
Yeah.
to a place that I could afford different temperate or different climates
We do have a direct flight to Palm Springs from Sacramento, but I really enjoy the drive. It only takes 8 hours to drive. And so I really enjoy that. And I'll go down there for a week or 10 days and stay at a resort and enjoy the winter summer weather, 70, 75 degrees, whatever. But it's beautiful to drive up and down the state and take advantage of the different climates.
And then you can go to San Francisco. I haven't been to San Francisco in years. You can get there in what, an hour and a half?
Hour and a half on the weekend when there's not so much traffic. But as some people may know, in the summer when you're getting out of the heat here, you want to bring a sweatshirt with you when you go to San Francisco because it is so cold
Yes.
in the summer. And so
that's what I learned the hard way, like every other tourist does.
Well, you end up just buying a souvenir, so you come home with a San Francisco sweatshirt.
Yep. And
Right.
I've done that.
Exactly.
Been there, done that. So, okay. All right. Since we're on climate and all that, how about the earthquakes? Tell us a little bit about that, because that might be a deciding factor for a lot of people.
Yeah.
How close or far are you from the San Andreas Fault?
So that's along the coast. And so we're an hour and a half, 2 hours away from that. And I was meant to look up how many miles, but I didn't. And that is an active fault, as everybody knows. And there are other active faults throughout California. And I was in an earthquake down in Los Angeles. I forget the exact year that was, if it was 1990, whatever it was, 94, 92. Anyway, and so bottom line is I did not want to move to a place that had an active fault line. And so in Sacramento, there are no active fault lines. And so we still have to build. There are California earthquake codes that you have to build by. It doesn't matter where you live in California. So the hospitals and everything, the houses have to be built for earthquake safety, but Sacramento has no active fault lines. And no liquefaction and none of that here. And so really the only thing that we've tried to man-made solutions would be towards the flooding when it's raining and we have the Sierra snowmelt at the same time. We get a lot of water coming through here. And so there are a large number of dams and reservoirs and aqueducts and things like that to take the water away.
Do you have mudslides?
No, because it's mostly flat. So,
you know what? And I was just thinking, this is how my crazy mind works. I'm like, Sacramento is the capital of California. So there are your political people living there or working there. Do you think they want to die in an earthquake? No.
Well, there was, I don't know if it was an urban myth, so I don't mean to spread rumors, but there's a little wealthy area that has a levee going around it. And that was the first area where they raised the levees because there were a lot of politicians and lobbyists that were living in that area. So protect your own first. You know? Yeah. But all of the levees have been raised in this area. There was a building moratorium for a few years until the levees were raised. And now that they are higher, the building boom has just continued. And there's 1,000 homes here and hundreds of homes there. And so it's quite a growing area.
Okay. Before we get off the disaster or natural disaster topic, what else was there? I was just going to talk about...
I was wondering if you wanted to ask about the drought.
Okay. So we have drought, right?
Yes. And we're currently...
Are you running out of water?
Currently, no. In 1 year, we made up for the last 4 years, hence the flooding. But the opposite end of that is we know we're still going to have, I mean, there's an ebb and flow, no pun intended, right? And so we know there are going to be drought conditions in the future. So there's a huge push to do drought tolerant landscaping and to still save water. We only water our front yard twice a week. And so on certain days, yes,
in
it's
California.
it's
Sacramento.
Yeah, it's throughout the state. They have different regulations, but in Sacramento, I mean, like the odd side of the street can water on Tuesday and Friday, and so on and so forth.
I'm for that.
Yeah, and so everything is on drip irrigation, and we're conserving water wherever we can. We have low flow toilets and low flow shower heads and things like that. So we're really trying to just be water wise, and so we really have to be. We really have to be. So at any rate, and there, I don't want to say there's plenty of water around, but we are surrounded by water. We have 20-mile bike paths along the river, and the river is just a torrent right now. So, I mean, it's pretty lush in some of these areas. So it's hard to imagine that we're still doing these drought restrictions, but it's we're trying to preserve the natural area and not abuse the land.
All right. So. Now I remember fire. Do we have fire? Forest fires? And...
There's not really a forest nearby. They're urban sort of forests or whatever, but the agricultural areas, there may be some grass fires that are a little closer to home than you would like, but there are no sweeping areas of forest or big open spaces or anything like that. Where we really have experienced fire is the leftover smoke from fires that are far away. And so when there's a fire in the Sierras, it may blow this direction. And so we have had many bad air days, but so far so good, knock on wood. This year is fine. Last year was fine. But there have been, think about the way the Canadian smoke came down over the East Coast.
New York. Oh my God. Yeah.
We had those same skies a couple years ago, and it went right over San Francisco, and they had orange skies over San Francisco. The fires were out of control, but hopefully that doesn't happen too often, and we're starting to put the power lines underground instead of sparking above ground, and so trying to take care of all of those things.
Okay, I think I covered everything except for maybe locusts. but other than that, I think we pretty much covered all the natural disasters that we could cover, but it sounds pretty good.
Well, for those people on the East Coast that listen to your podcast, I will say we don't have horse flies that bite you when you're lying out in the sun, because that used to be the thing that would just aggravate me to no end, is that I'd be on the beach somewhere in Maine and just be eaten by these horse flies.
Yeah. And I lived in Florida for a period of time, and I was a mosquito magnet. So yeah. How's the mosquitoes and bugs out there?
I think, again, because we do have these extensive rice paddies, we do have some mosquitoes, but they're nothing compared to what I was getting on the East Coast. They're nothing compared to that because it's not a humid environment.
Right. Gotcha. And it's dry.
Yeah.
Okay. Back to the gayborhood. So does Sacramento have a gayborhood?
Yes.
And do they have gay bars?
Yes. Years ago, it was nicknamed Lavender Heights. And more recently, they just built a LGBT senior apartment building called Lavender Courtyard. And so that is affordable living for LGBT seniors. And so obviously, Sacramento is very welcoming to its LGBT community. So I don't know if there's 3 or 4 gay bars down there. That's another place that I know offers free salsa dancing, and I'm going there next week too. So I just have it in my bucket list to really be good at salsa. I don't know why.
I do eat salsa.
I do go to Puerto Vallarta. I really appreciate Latin music. So
yeah, that's on my bucket list too.
Yeah. But down in that Midtown area is where Midtown Sacramento is where Lavender Heights is. And that's the hip and trendy area
That's what I
where it's
read.
restaurants and walkable area and all sorts of parks. There's like a park on every other block. It's just a really well covered in trees so that you get a nice canopy of shade when it's really warm out. So you go down to these second Saturday or these evening events that are downtown, and there's a lot of shade provided by the trees there. And the state capitol has a beautiful rose garden. And anyway, it's a nice green area.
Is Midtown a place to live also? Can you live in Midtown
Absolutely.
and walk and do
Absolutely.
Okay.
Friends,
So,
we have my best friend Steve and his husband Ash. They bought a 3-story arts and crafts, I want to say, mansion in the little area called Mansion Flats within Sacramento. And their basement, or the first floor, is a studio unit that they have on Airbnb. And a lot of people who are attending conventions at the Sacramento Convention Center rent that, and they walk to the convention center. So it's a hotel alternative. So, and they have a dog, and of course they walk their dog downtown and walk to restaurants and walk to the theater when the Broadway shows come to town. And
that's cool. I like doing that too.
Yeah.
And Heritage Park it's not walkable, right? But it's only walkable within. I'm picturing it.
It's a suburban community. There's one Indian restaurant that we can walk to, and they have a little Indian market, so we could walk there, whatever. But basically, it is a driving community. But they do have Natomas is the name of the community, name of the township, and they have free transportation for seniors around
into town.
Around Natomas, and I don't know, but I'm thinking it goes down to Sacramento. But in Natomas itself, we have 5 grocery stores, and we have plenty of amenities here in Natomas. So I don't need to go downtown for anything except maybe for live theater, for the symphony, or for a museum.
So,
and that's about 15 minutes away.
I was just going to ask you how far in time?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, 15 minutes is not bad. So it is a suburb, sort of.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
And it's gated community, right? Your community.
We do. We do have the gated community, and I appreciate that. I think it adds to the property value. It also adds to the sense of security for older people walking around at all hours, so that you really feel like you're in a peaceful environment. We have no through traffic. No through traffic whatsoever.
I kind of like that. Yeah. Can you imagine? I'm right on a busy thoroughfare in Midtown Phoenix. So, and we have the light rail right across the street from our condo. So you hear, it sounds sort of like San Francisco's trolley cars, but dinging. Yeah.
Right. I mean, there's a benefit to that, but I'm really noise sensitive. And so I really like a quiet area. But my friends who live downtown, they would never live anywhere else. They really, really enjoy it.
Yeah. Everybody's different.
Yeah.
So, and you said a few gay bars?
Yes. Okay. And there's like a leather bar and a younger person's bar and lots of mix. So it's well supported for all.
So how easy or difficult is it to make friends in Sacramento or your area?
I was thinking about like how to answer this. And so from my own experience, I belong to a few different gay men's groups. And also because I'm sober, going to 12-step meetings, belonging to that sort of group, I have a whole host of friends there. With the Rainbow Club, I have a new family here that I'm really, feeling the love and support from. One of my friends here, Wayne, and I play pickleball 2-3 times a week, and we have free lessons here, and we're like easing our way into the club. And today, some of our club members just won gold medals in a tournament nearby. And so it's just really exciting that these folks are are creating the next chapter for themselves. And I just retired 2 years ago, so I'm starting on that next chapter myself. But with the different gay groups, there are a lot of outdoor groups. And so there are meetups for brunch in Sacramento, as well as hiking groups. And they're hiking in the Sierras. They're hiking in Marin County, which is just north of San Francisco. So you're driving maybe an hour and a half to some of these areas, but then you're meeting people who live in other communities. So it's not just the local. Mm-hmm. But so I think it's very supportive to meet if you look for it. It's very supportive to meet other people or just have an interest. The other thing I will say is we frequent the Sacramento Gay Men's Chorus, and I wanted to give them a shout out because they've really done some great things for our community over the last many years. And so they're very, very active as well. LA has a wonderful gay men's chorus. San Francisco has a wonderful gay men's chorus, and ours is I think 150 members strong now. And so that's really exciting that we're giving everybody else a run for their money.
Are you in the chorus or you just listen?
No, I have been a singer, and so it's something that I've considered, but I haven't quite taken the leap yet.
Okay. All right. So it seems like, you do have, let's get into might as well jump around a little. So arts and culture, let's talk about, since we're talking about the Gay Men's Chorus, what type of arts and culture scene is there in Sacramento? Is there live theater or
yes, I was
museums?
actually shocked at how many live theaters that we had here. I think last I counted, there were 5 of them. Oh. And we also have some national touring companies from Broadway coming out. And so we have a Broadway season during the winter, September through May. And then we have like a summer stock that we have equity members joining some local people, and that's throughout the summer. A show will run for 1 week or something. Just recently, The Music Man was here, and or they performed it here as part of that summer stock. But I wanted to get tickets to see. Oh, now I can't even remember what it's called. But anyway, a show coming up in September, and it's all sold out. So I'm like, It's very well attended. And we also have a Sacramento Symphony and a Sacramento Chorus. We also have a few museums in town. The Railroad Museum, which may not be in a lot of people's radar, but that is a national park, the Railroad Museum here, and it's what Sacramento was founded on. And that's in a historic district called Old Town. And Old Town is where people used to come from the Bay Area to start their gold rush days. And of course, Sacramento didn't have the levees then. And so Sacramento would flood every year. And so this Old Town, built in the 1800s, was flooding all the time. And so they built up the wall around it, and they built up that whole community. So the first floor is now the basement. And when you enter one of these Victorian buildings, you're now entering on the second story, which is now street level.
Right.
So, and we also have a Delta King, the Delta Queen, a paddle boat that's moored in the river. And then we also have a new cruise ship that just started to come by, and an expensive cruise liner. I don't know if it's $5,000 for a week. I don't know what it is, and so they go from San Francisco to Stockton to Sacramento, and it's through the Delta. And so it's fascinating.
Wow.
But so there are some great galleries. I mentioned with Second Saturday that they have here, and all the galleries are open late Saturday night and have this sort of pathway to walk around. They're also promoting murals. These artists are coming in and painting the sides of buildings, these murals. And so we have different mural walks. They have food walks, and so you can enjoy different tastes of Sacramento throughout the different areas. So anyway.
Is there a specific arts and culture area of town? of Sacramento?
It's very spread out. So it's definitely the midtown, downtown sort of area. And then there's another area called Broadway that has a lot of international restaurants, a lot of Asian restaurants, Ethiopian restaurants. And so that's what I would consider the newest sort of hip and trendy area. And so it's really fascinating how 16 years ago, I would drive through one of these areas and would not even want to get out of my car. And now it's the new hip area. So, I mean, it's really gone through a change. So it's very exciting.
That's great. That is great. Okay. So, and you mentioned land itself. That's all your land, right? It's not on American Indian land or leased land?
We're not leasing the land, and we don't pay a lot fee. I know a lot of mobile home communities pay a lot fee, and then Palm Springs, it's leased land. And
right.
So this is buying a regular house. That's what realtors may call stick built in Northern California. That's opposed to the modular home. This is stick built, traditional construction. And you own your lot.
Okay.
You own the land that your house is on.
Okay. Sounds great. So, all right. We talked about the climate. We talked about, it's kind of, to me, we talked about a kind of a low cost of living compared to other parts of California, which is definitely a plus side. Tell us about the restaurant scene now. I love to eat, as you can tell.
I'm a foodie too.
So tell us about that. I know I'm originally from New York, and I can't really compare New York to anything. But what's the restaurant scene like in Sacramento?
So we have 2 Michelin star restaurants in Sacramento. And then we have a ton of what I call shopping mall restaurants. And then we have some family owned restaurants with some history behind them. And we have a lot of cultural international food restaurants, and we have Middle Eastern markets and Middle Eastern restaurants. And so there's anything really you could be looking for, you could probably find it here. Not maybe throughout, but there's sort of like a collection of Middle Eastern markets in one area of Sacramento. And then there is a collection of Asian markets in another area. And so near there, you're going to find more of those types of restaurants. And so it's kind of fascinating to be able to buy all of my husband is Armenian. And so he's excited that he can buy some of the products that he's used to from the Middle East here. And so it's kind of nice.
Yeah. So you don't run out of restaurants and choices. It seems like there's a wide array.
First of all, Robert and I love to cook. So we're very picky and choosy when we go out to a restaurant. Mm-hmm. But true, there are great Italian restaurants. There are great Japanese restaurants. There are some wonderful California bistro fusion restaurants. And I love pub food. And so there are some really good Irish pubs out there and beer garden food, but it's good quality. One of the things I love about Sacramento, when we moved here, the tagline was City of Trees, which is good if you're having 100-degree weather. It's City of Trees. But now they call it the Farm to Fork capital. And so it's the capital of California, and it's the Farm to Fork capital. So every September, you'll see in the different agricultural areas and October, they have harvest festivals. Sonoma has a harvest festival, and there's a pumpkin festival just south of Sacramento, and the giant pumpkin is there. But in Sacramento, they have sort of the Capitol Mall, which is a very large public space for public events, all the way to the Tower Bridge to Old Town. It's a huge, huge event space. That's a big open space downtown that is covered with food booths. in September for the
Wow.
Farm to Fork Festival. So many of the restaurants here want to maintain that farm to fork theme. So you're always getting local, you're always getting fresh and seasonal. People
I love that.
change their menus with the season. We went to this one restaurant and on market day, so there's a farmer's market right outside this restaurant, and we go for lunch and the chef offers a special for lunch where everything is sourced from that farmer's market that day. And so it's that sort of feel. So it's a foodie community.
It sounds good because I'm a foodie, and yeah, I can definitely see myself living there. As far as the
So
restaurants, tell us about traffic. Is there any public transportation? Because I hate driving. That's one
so do
thing.
I.
Coming from New York, I like the New York transportation feel because we had subways, buses. So I really don't like to drive much. So does Sacramento have any public transportation? What's the traffic situation like? If I did have to drive, of course I would. And let us know. Yeah. And where's the closest airport? Does Sacramento have an airport?
Yes, I'll start with that. We're about 5 minutes
You
away,
did mention that.
5 or 10 minutes away from the Sacramento International Airport. And so for me, that's pretty exciting because I like to just take an Uber to the airport and get it over with.
Do you hear the planes above your home?
Every now and then. The FAA is doing a survey right now because this northern part of Sacramento has grown so much and we're all participating as the airport is growing and as we are growing. The other side of the airport from where we are is all agricultural land. And so we are working with the airport to be sure that most flights are flying over agricultural land and not over the suburban area. So they're very good neighbors. So they're very,
Cool.
very, very good neighbors. The other piece of that is I hate to drive as well. And I used to drive in Los Angeles, going to work every day. I worked at Cedars-Sinai in Beverly Hills, and so that's very congested. And it took 45 minutes to go 10 miles. And so I had PTSD. I came up here and the traffic would slow down a little bit as I was driving to work, and I'd be all frustrated because I knew I was going to be late. And just as I was going through that thought process, the traffic would open up and then it would move again. And so, yes, there's rush hour traffic, but it's not an hour. It's like 30 minutes. And so there's congestion. There are bottlenecks. There also are construction projects that are happening right now because of the most recent infrastructure bill that came out of the White House. They have widened one of the major thoroughfares here, and that's still finishing right now, but it's much easier to move through Sacramento than it ever has been. So they're really preparing for the future. And so most things that Robert and I need, we get from our local area. I don't have to go downtown for anything. I do travel through downtown for my doctor because I just don't want to get a new doctor. I want to keep the one I had where we used to live. But I choose to go downtown either right before rush hour or after it. And I have that flexibility. I go down there once a week or maybe not that much more often than that, but I choose to go just before 5 o'clock. And so, but it's really fine. I'm just a baby about it. I'm a wimp about it. But
I would be the same way.
up in this area, again, it's a newer community, not just our community, but northern Sacramento started to expand north in the 1990s. And so then into the 2000s and so on. And so this planned suburban area has very wide roads. And so there's no bottlenecks in this northern part of Sacramento. In the
Nice.
other areas of Sacramento, they're a little more established. They're older, built in the 50s and so on. And so there are a lot more local roads, but they've really planned well for this area. I will say that The 5 freeway is the major thoroughfare going up and down the state of California. And in Sacramento, they're now widening that near our airport. And one of the reasons is because they're expanding the Amazon and Walmart warehouses that are at the Sacramento airport. So all of these logistics centers are just booming around the Sacramento airport. And so they're widening the freeways to accompany all that. Yeah.
At least they're doing that. There are some places that build and never do anything to the infrastructure.
Yeah,
but
so they're keeping up.
We're talking California. California's a little bit different than everybody else. Okay, so you're close to the airport. Traffic's not bad. Oh, did we mention public transportation?
Yeah, so downtown does have a light rail, and it sort of goes horizontal across the city, which is all fine and good. And they have one leg of it that does go south. But right this instant, we don't have any light rail coming into Natomas. But I was reading the other day that I mentioned earlier that Sacramento is surrounded by these rivers. And so you need a bridge to cross the river. So there's only limited bridges. So again, luckily we're in Natomas. We take the 5 freeway to go down into Sacramento. That's very, very wide. And so there's really no problem crossing. But there are other areas crossing the river that are these bottlenecks at certain times of the day. So they're looking into putting 3 more bridges across the rivers, one of which is going to extend the light rail and car traffic over the river through Natomas and all the way up to the airport. So we don't have public transportation to the airport, which is silly in my view, but there is a plan. There's always been a plan for that. It's just a matter of growth and money and so on. But it's in the works currently. Does
the light rail go through Midtown?
Yes.
And does the light rail go to the airport from Midtown?
No.
Okay. So nothing on the light rail goes to the airport?
Correct.
I know. Something they have to work on.
But it's in the works. It's in a 10-year plan, and it's unfortunately been in the past 20-year plan. But it just is what it is. There's been all sorts of, as I mentioned, there was some levy concerns and a building moratorium, and then the real estate market crashed and all of that. So now things are on the upswing, and so everything is now in a boom phase.
Right. Yeah.
So
everybody's trying to play catch up.
And it's a good time to buy. It's a good time to buy.
Well, everything you told me about, it sounds like it's a place that it's very intriguing. I'll tell you that. So whenever I speak with someone, if I would think about moving to a place, must be something going on there. That's good. So, okay. We pretty much covered, we didn't cover the crime. So, of course, every city has crime. And I'm sure Sacramento has crime. And let's talk a little bit about that. What type of crime do you experience? Would I feel safe taking my little doggie or doggies out at 2 a.m. if I had to? Well, I'm sure in your community you would feel safe because it's all gated. But Midtown, downtown Sacramento, would I feel safe?
In general, yes. But I think crime can rear its ugly head anywhere. And so I don't want to generalize, but in our community, our 55 plus folks are not, maybe we're out late going to the theater and then we come right home. Right. We're not going out after the theater mostly. Right. But yes, there is some crime in the downtown area. There is some homeless in the downtown area. And I don't mean to equate the two, but just in terms of fear factor, you're walking in different areas and you're having thoughts. So crime has I don't know if you say crime has improved. No, the crime has been more controlled in all of the areas. And so I don't read about it being that big of a deal. But of course, we have gun problems and shootings and police issues and things like that. I don't want to say that it does not exist, because it does. Natomas is more of a family community, and it's a newer community, again, with larger areas and bigger spaces, not as much of a homeless problem in this area rather than downtown. And then within, as you mentioned, our gated community, we have 24/7 security. And so let's say I go away for 3 weeks, I call the security company and tell them, this is my address, I'm leaving. And so they'll come and they'll patrol, they'll walk around back and pop the fence and walk around back and make sure everything looks all good and whatever. And so we feel very secure here. And so there are neighbors who walk their dog at 2 a.m. and in our community. And so it's that sense of security that we really do have here.
Right. So you don't feel like you go out at night, you don't look over your shoulder pretty much and say, oh, okay.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, if you were walking here at night, you'd be more than likely to say hello to the person that you're passing rather than crossing the street.
Right.
So,
like you might here. Okay. So let's talk about healthcare.
So there are at least three major healthcare providers in this area, and they're huge. We have Kaiser Northern California Kaiser, and then we also have Sutter. Oh, we have Dignity Healthcare. Sorry, now we have four, and UC Davis Health. So UC Davis Health is an academic institution, and so they're a sprawling healthcare system along with UC San Francisco and a variety of other UC healthcare systems throughout the state. And then Sutter Healthcare is also throughout the state, and Dignity as well is throughout the state. And of course, Kaiser. So we do have those four major players that all have hospitals and physicians in the area. We also have a new academic institution that's being built right here in Natomas in North Sacramento, and that's North State University. They already have a dental school and a medical school, but now they're building a hospital that's going to be like 5 blocks away from us. And there used to be a performance auditorium called the Arena there, and they tore down this enormous arena, and it's a huge, huge, huge footprint of land. And so a quarter of that is going to be this hospital campus with a school and all of that. And then they're also building housing and a variety of other public amenities on this land. So it's a great expansion of a failing building.
So the closest hospital to you, if God forbid something happened, you needed to go to ER, how far away in minutes?
I would say probably 15 minutes.
15 minutes. Okay. Not bad. That's in the vicinity. And which hospital is that?
It would be Kaiser on one end or UC Davis or Sutter, because they're all fairly close to Midtown.
Okay.
They're all fairly close to
15 minutes away from Midtown, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Kaiser is expanding. They're building a new hospital. The old Kaiser hospital doesn't meet what we were talking about earlier, the earthquake guidelines, even though we have no earthquakes. So they're building a brand new Kaiser hospital in this urban infill area in Sacramento. It's called the Rail Yards. And so it's this enormous area that's again, a building boom is happening. So
wow. That's pretty impressive. 4 hospitals in a city.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Do they have enough doctors to meet the population requirements? And What is the population of Sacramento?
Oh, I don't know off the top of my head. I'm
That's
very
okay.
sorry.
That's okay.
I could Google it really quickly.
That's okay.
But yeah, they do have enough physicians for this urban area. But UC Davis is making a concerted effort to have new doctors come from rural areas because there is a shortage of doctors in rural areas. They're doing a lot more with telehealth, and video visits. I just had a video visit the other day. And so they're doing a lot more with those things to help with traffic and coming in and congestion and utilizing services and things like that. But the rural areas are definitely hurting in terms of physicians. But on the other hand, they're hiring a lot more nurse practitioners and physician assistants, and those programs are booming as well. So
Right. Well, healthcare is very, very important, especially as we age. So we want to make sure that wherever we live has proper and adequate health care. It's very,
yes.
very important. There are some places that they don't have. They may be a great place to live, but healthcare might be an hour away. So
some of these healthcare institutions like UC Davis, they're building 2 more hospitals out in these suburban areas as well. So you mentioned that's interesting that there are 4 hospitals in downtown. Well, they can't build anymore. They're stuck.
Right.
So they're very, very limited. They're huge as it is. UC Davis Hospital is 600 beds, and I think they just got licensed for 300 more. But they're also building 2 more hospitals, one in Rocklin near Roseville, California, and one out towards Folsom. And these are both like foothill communities to the Sierras.
Gotcha. Yeah, as I said, very, very important to have them close by. So that's great that they're building even more.
Yeah.
So what do you wish that you had in Sacramento that you don't have that you may have had elsewhere? Is there anything that you miss? Or?
Yeah, I mean, like you, I don't like to drive. And so I would like to walk to a coffee shop or walk to a restaurant, have a nice meal and walk home. But again, there are so many places within 15 minutes that it's really not a big deal. And if I were to be completely honest, we have our own restaurant here we have a private restaurant, our pub in the community, and they have free coffee there for residents. So I kind of have it built into so Robert and I in the morning, we'll take our walk in the cool air and we'll end up at the clubhouse and we'll have a cup of coffee and we'll talk to some people hanging out there, and then we'll walk ourselves home. And
right.
the Rainbow Club will host a dinner at the pub, and so we'll walk there and we'll have a dinner at the pub and then we'll walk home. So I do have that. I would just want more. The Natomas area, northern Sacramento area, there aren't a lot of high-end restaurants, and I'm not talking Michelin. I just mean there are more chains. Restaurants.
Yeah.
And they're fine, but I would want more variety.
Mom and pop.
Yeah. I really enjoy the mom and pop restaurants.
Yeah. I hear you.
So.
Yeah. When I lived in Florida, that's how it was, because I lived in a suburb about 30 minutes out of Tampa. Mm-hmm. So that's exactly, we had an abundance of fast food chains and stuff like that, but not really that many mom and pops, which I missed.
Yeah.
So what would you say would be the cons? Do you think there's any cons of living there?
I think, once again, I think that because I have that flexibility to get out of town, we have close by so many things. I mean, yes, I would like it to be cooler in the summer, but I look at the weather as a whole. And on the whole, I love the weather here. I don't have a lot to complain about. I wish I could, it was a little more walkable in terms of like walking to a gallery, or I would like the midtown living, but this size of a house.
Right. I hear you.
in a senior community, you
Yeah.
know. So,
Yeah.
but because I love walking in Midtown and things like that, and close to all of those amenities, it's absolutely beautiful. But
Yep.
it's only 15 minutes away, and so I think what I have here is the quiet that I really need
Right.
as a preference.
You got it. Okay. So in wrapping up, what would you say to our audience if they're thinking about relocating to Sacramento?
I've spoken with more than a handful of people who are looking at relocating, and my husband is a realtor, full disclosure, and our community has resale homes. It's not builder for sale. They're not new. They were built in 2004. So these are private sales going through other realtors, or maybe Robert might represent someone in the selling process. He works throughout the Sacramento area. But I would first say when Robert and I moved here, we visited, then we came back and we did rent for a little while, just to be sure that we got a chance to really look
Smart.
at different neighborhoods. So we rented for a little while. There are homes in our community that are for rent, so that's a possibility. They come up very few, far and few between, but there are some. And then the next thing is my husband, Robert, has a website called relyonrobert.net. And on this website, very shortly, maybe by the time this goes live, we're going to have a tab, a menu item on his website that's going to have Heritage Park 55 plus. And so clicking on that, you can see the different homes in our community that are for sale.
Oh, cool.
And that'll be updated. So all of those will have updated information on pricing, square footage, pending status, whatever. The other thing is, obviously, through that website, you can reach out to Robert and look at other areas and sending information, square foot price in other areas, and really do your homework. But this area is still growing. And I think that says a lot because we have the space to grow. So we're not going to be congested, and they're taking care of that infrastructure before we grow or as we grow. And so I'm just really excited about the future here. I could easily see myself being here for another 20 years.
Sounds great. And yeah, it does sound very interesting. I think we're all going to find it interesting and get onto your husband's website and check things out.
It'll be great.
Thank you so much for joining us today on the podcast, Greg. It was really wonderful. You educated us and educated myself on what life is like in Sacramento. And,
who knew, right? Who knew?
Sacramento would never even think. So, but now I'm thinking.
Well, I tell you, we used to drive by Sacramento and laugh. We used to laugh and say, never in a million years would we live here. For whatever reason, whatever thoughts we had. And then because of jobs, we ended up here, and now we have no reason to move.
It's like, who knew?
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Wonderful.
Life is good.
Life is great. Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and we'll speak soon.
All right. You take care of yourself.
You too. Thank you.
All righty.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Where Do Gays Retire podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to our podcast and consider making a donation by clicking the coffee cup on any page at www.wheredogaysretire.com. Each cup of coffee that you buy costs $5 and goes towards helping us continue the podcast. Thank you for your continued support.